The Battle of the Philippines had been raging for 2 months with no end in sight. A small unit of American soldiers were assigned the mission to hold a roadblock to prevent any Japanese movement into their lines. Not long after taking positions, 5 Japanese tanks rolled down the road towards the roadblock. With no anti-tank guns or armor in support, the men braced for the fight of their lives. One of these American soldiers, Private First Class Dirk Vlug of the Red Arrow Division, a battle-hardened veteran of the New Guinea campaign, grabbed a bazooka and 6 rockets to pick a fight against the enemy tanks. With bullets zipping overhead from the Japanese machine guns, Vlug smirked to his comrades and said the odds are even. He dashed off to take on the enemy armor head to head. It's an interesting fact that most war heroes have humble beginnings. It's as if the hard lessons of their youth taught them to face life head-on, always fighting and never giving up. Such was the case with Dirk Jan Cornelius Vlug, a young boy from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Born in 1916 as the 4th of 6 children to Dutch immigrants Isaac and Mitje Decker, Dirk spent his early years in Carina Township, Minnesota. When he was 6, the family moved to Michigan, where his father opened a carpentry workshop. Dirk worked hard alongside him to help put food on the table. Dirk was a diligent young man with a strong sense of duty, raised to be a man who got the job done no matter what. When in autumn of 1940, responding to the threat of war, the country called to service, Dirk was among the first to register at his local draft board. On April 21, 1941, he entered the U.S. Army as a private first class. He was assigned to the 126th Infantry Regiment of the 32nd Infantry Division, famously known as the Red Arrow Division. As part of the 5th Corps, the 32nd Infantry Division took part in the massive Louisiana maneuvers. Initially scheduled to be deployed to Europe after the U.S. entered the war in December of 41, the division's orders were suddenly changed. Instead of crossing the Atlantic, they were sent to San Francisco to board ships bound for Australia. Dirk Vlug and his buddies were about to face hell in the Pacific. After arriving in Australia in May of 42, the 32nd Division was deployed to New Guinea to support Allied efforts in liberating the island from the Japanese. Almost immediately upon landing, the 126th Infantry was put to serious challenges. The most notable was the assignment given to the 2nd Battalion to cross the Kappa Kappa Trail, a treacherous mountain path through the Owen Stanley Range. The goal was to outflank the Japanese by getting behind their lines. The journey involved climbing to elevations over 9,000 feet, navigating steep ridges, dense jungles, and enduring relentless rain. The battalion embarked on this march with limited supplies, expecting to receive airdrops along the way. The journey turned into one of the most disturbing stories of World War II. The battalion suffered from constant lack of food, harsh weather, and exposure to various tropical diseases. When they finally reached their destination, they discovered that the rest of the regiment had already been transported by air. What followed was the Battle of Buna-Gona, the 126th Infantry's first major engagement. The men quickly learned everything they had heard about the Japanese and their fanaticism with combat. They encountered fierce resistance from well-fortified Japanese who fought to the death. The battle ended with a staggering 80% casualty toll. Private First Class Dirk Vlug was among the lucky few to survive this devastating campaign. Due to heavy losses, the 126th Infantry was withdrawn to Australia in early 1943 for rest and reorganization. The regiment received replacements and went through extensive training to restore its combat readiness. The war was far from over, and Dirk Vlug's moment of heroism still lay ahead. In January 1944, the 126th Infantry returned to New Guinea, landing at Sador on the island's north coast. The troops took part in Operation Dexterity, aimed at cutting off retreating Japanese forces from Madang. This time, the Japanese did not offer the same level of organized resistance as they had at Buna-Gona. Still, the troops had to sweep the area and eliminate scattered enemy forces. From Sador, the 126th moved west along the coast toward the provinces of Hollandia and Atape. Here, too, they had to move into the jungle to deal with the Japanese troops still active outside the perimeter. Vlug and his fellow soldiers faced not only harsh climates, disease, and shortages of food and water, but also constant threats from Japanese snipers, ambushes, and night attacks. The mental strain grew heavier with each passing day. It took months to drive the Japanese from the area. Operations continued well into August, after which the regiment was pulled back from the front lines. At that moment, Dirk Vlug recalled how when he first joined the army, he promised his family he'd be back in a year. More than 3 years had passed since, and as he could witness, the Japanese had no intention of surrendering. And indeed, he was right. The regiment's withdrawal from New Guinea was only a pause. Soon, they would be preparing for an even larger mission, the Battle of Leyte. The 126th Infantry Division entered the Battle of Leyte during its second phase, joining the fight in the Ormoc Valley. They moved into position behind the 127th Infantry to help their advance along Highway 2. As in New Guinea, the terrain was too steep and slippery, making progress extremely difficult even without the Japanese resistance. The Japanese forces were dug into spider holes and foxholes. Every curve in the road was covered by enemy fire. It was a slow and dangerous fight. Still, the men of the 126th Infantry were determined to crush the Japanese resistance. Many of them had already become battle-hardened veterans. They fought with incredible bravery, so great that within just 10 days, 3 of them earned the Medal of Honor, one of them being Dirk Vlug. The first recipient was Private First Class William A. McWhorter. On December 5th, during a Japanese attack on Company N, a block of TNT was thrown into his machine gun position. Without hesitation, McWhorter grabbed the explosive and held it to his chest, sacrificing his life to save his fellow soldiers. Just 9 days later, on December 14th, while the regiment was breaking through the Yamashita line, Sergeant Leroy Johnson displayed similar heroism by throwing himself onto an enemy grenade to protect his men. The very next day, it was Dirk Vlug's turn to give the Japanese another display of what exactly American GIs were made of. On December 15th, Private First Class Dirk Vlug and a group of soldiers manned a roadblock along the road from the town of Limon to Ormoc. The roadblock was established to prevent the Japanese from slipping behind American lines, but Vlug and his buddies didn't expect the enemy to appear. The group spent the entire morning with no activity and actual peace. It was something they hadn't experienced in a long time, and they certainly enjoyed it. But the peace was disturbed with the sound of tank tracks in the distance. After a minute of suspense, 2 Japanese tanks appeared coming down the road. The first tank was laying a screen to conceal their movement. As soon as they came within range, both tanks opened fire on Vlug's position from their 37mm guns. The American soldiers immediately dove for cover. That is, all except for Dirk Vlug, who decided to fight back. An experienced soldier, Vlug knew the Japanese Type 95 Hago tanks rolling toward him had poor armor protection. Their under half-an-inch, 12mm thick armor plate could be penetrated by a .50 caliber round, let alone something heavier. Therefore, Dirk grabbed a Bazooka rocket launcher and 6 rounds and stepped on the road. Despite being fired upon by a leading tank machine gunner, Vlug calmly loaded his bazooka, took aim, and fired. The leading tank burst into flames. It was a direct shot. The explosion forced the crew from the other tank to jump out of their vehicle. They were unaware that they were facing only one enemy. Dirk was quick to respond. He drew his M1911 pistol and opened fire, immediately killing one of the crew and forcing the others to retreat back into the tank. It was a fatal mistake, though. They gave Dirk enough time to reload his bazooka and fire another round. Another direct hit. The second tank was destroyed. But the fight wasn't over. 3 more tanks appeared and opened fire on Vlug with their machine guns. Undeterred by the danger, Dirk yelled to his soldiers to stay hidden while he tried to flank the tanks. He managed to approach them at close range using as much jungle cover as he possibly could, destroying 2 more with well-placed bazooka shots. With his last rocket, Vlug aimed at the 5th tank as it tried to go around the burning wreckage and carry on its relentless attack. The shot hit, and the tank veered off the road and tumbled down a steep embankment. In just a few minutes, it was all over. When the American soldiers emerged from the cover, they could hardly believe what they saw. Private Dirk Vlug had taken on and destroyed 5 enemy tanks by himself. It was his final engagement on Leyte. 4 days later, the 1st Squadron of the 112th Cavalry arrived to relieve the 126th Infantry. After Leyte, Vlug's regiment continued to fight on Luzon and later served as part of the occupation force in Japan. The 126th Infantry was officially deactivated February 28, 1946. Upon deactivation and return to the United States, Dirk Vlug began working as a mailman in his hometown of Grand Rapids. Despite being a national hero, he never boasted about his combat achievements. Then one day, Dirk received a letter informing him that he had been awarded the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military decoration. On June 7, 1946, at an official ceremony at the White House, President Harry Truman presented the Medal of Honor to Private First Class Dirk Vlug. Back in Grand Rapids, the community prepared an even bigger welcome for their hometown hero. As a sign of gratitude and recognition, they raised funds to build a new house for Dirk and his wife. In May 1949, Dirk joined the Michigan National Guard, where he served for 2 years, eventually achieving the rank of Master Sergeant. Until his passing in 1996, Medal of Honor recipient Dirk J. Vlug lived a peaceful, quiet life, like so many men of the greatest generation. Thank you for watching this episode. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the Militology Channel. Stay tuned.